Hello and welcome back to the show. Today we are doing the review for Everton versus Man City. 3-1 winners were Man City, and we scored first, which was an interesting sort of start to the game because, you raised that conversation of us scoring first, having never lost from that position under Deitch. You would have put us in a really good position to win the game, but unfortunately class prevails, and also the invisible demon almost that we're fighting when it comes to playing big six opponents. Seems like we're fighting something extra, and it felt like that was fully on display today. So an unfortunate result, but yet again another optimistic sort of showing in terms of us being able to get into a winnable position. The next step is having that composure and ability to put the game to bed. Now, I've seen a really good quote on Twitter that really sums things up. You need your best team and beat your best to beat the best. Sadly, that wasn't the case tonight, but it wasn't for the want of trying. And I think that really sums it up quite well, because I think there were a few little moments there where you could see how loose we were in terms of structure. Sometimes with the passes, they were loose. We were feeling the heat at times. We were probably... You look at the game when it's all said and done, and you see how many shots we gave up. In a game where we're more compact and sturdy at the back, it's a very different story. Like, you look at the game against Spurs, for example, obviously a little bit of a weaker team. They give away a little bit on defense in order to get what they want on the more attacking side of things. So it's a little bit of give or take. But with Man City, they don't really give you too much defensively. But they were in a bit of a rough patch, so we could sense the weakness. Look, we've struggled against really good opposition. And in the last 12 league games, the 4 games we've lost have been against big six opponents, if you will: Liverpool, Man United, Man City, Spurs. So you know what? There's been a few things in the way of each of those 4 losses as well: red cards, penalties, goals being disallowed, and then obviously today another penalty. We'll talk about the penalty first. The penalty, as far as I'm concerned, the ball looked like it was going to go straight into Onana's head. Now, his arm is in line with, his stature, straight line. His arm was in line with his body. So, look, it did hit his hand, and you can say, well, it hits his hand, it's a penalty. That's fine. But you look at so many other calls that have been made over the course of time since VAR was introduced, and, they just don't get called some of the time. They don't. And if they do, they sometimes get overruled, because you can see, well, he's put his body on the line 5 feet or less away from where the ball is. It's cannoned into him. There's nothing he can do about it. And for a guy who was making such a desperate lunge in the box against a team when you're trying to defend a lead, Man City evidently had more momentum. They had the run of play. They had scored the last goal. You need to make desperate plays, and making desperate lunges like that, you can't make those lunges without needing to balance yourself the way that Amma did. And so, unfortunately, we didn't get the run of the grain. It's really that simple. But I don't agree with the decision, of course, and it's not from a biased point of view. I just don't think he could do anything else. And there have been far worse calls that haven't been called. You look at it in isolation, I don't think he can do anything about it. The other concerning thing is that we get taught as youngsters, and we get taught as, well, older individuals watching games of football. Once a referee makes a decision, you can't influence the decision. And apparently there's been a stamping down of the rules, an emphasis on the rules that ensure that players cannot influence referee decisions, and they get booked for it. In this game, you had basically the entirety of the Man City team swarm the referee, and he changes his decision. That goes against everything that you're taught growing up playing sport, watching sport on the big screen. watching sport at professional level, we're taught that once the call is made, the call is final. The call was not final. The decision was influenced. So that's the other issue I have. I just don't think he could have done anything about it. And it was like the other day. The call wasn't made initially, but then it was changed. In this situation, the call initially wasn't made, probably because the impulse was to not make the call. And usually teams would be given the benefit of the doubt. But unfortunately, we're not one of those teams. We don't know what luck is. But if we look at things from a game perspective, and actually, yeah, now that we've got that out of the way, let's move forward to the game itself. I'm going to give my player of the game, and this may seem a little bit stupid, and you're probably going to call me a clown for this. I give it to Jordan Pickford. Very controversial because he obviously was responsible for the third goal, but that being said, the game could have changed at many points throughout, and I think one of the stages of the game that could have really seen the game take a different turn, and a turn for the worse, was early in the game where Jordan Pickford had to make a double save and then another save off a Grealish shot. He doesn't make those saves, especially the double save, which, I mean, for all money, I thought that was going in. You know, if he doesn't make those saves, we're down 1-0. You know, the crowd probably is a little bit less optimistic. Sure, we can feed off the results of the past and how well we've played in those games, but going down 1-0 to City, you have that inevitability of, well, we've got to score one to even get back into the game. It's a long road back. Pickford making those two saves kept us in a winnable position, and then from then on we could actually score. And if it wasn't for Pickford's early game heroics, we're not leading by 1-0. We know statistically how good we are when we are leading after we score first. That's a great position to be in. And even though we were playing Man City, it was like that feeling of invincibility that we haven't lost under Dyche. So surely we can't do it now. Surely this isn't going to be an exception. But unfortunately, yeah, class prevails. That being said, if Pickford doesn't make those saves, he made some really important ones on the day, the game is a completely different place. We may be out of it much earlier in the contest, but we went into the break leading 1-0. It was the dream. And you had that optimism that we could continue it for the next 45 minutes. Now, the goal that he was probably at fault for, little bit fortuitous. It had to go off the Man City player perfectly and then had to fall nicely after hitting Branthwaite. So a couple little fortuitous bits of play. I think that really sums up the way things went today. But I think the game was gone by then. We had our chances. DCL misses one at the other end. And that really did it. I don't think he could have saved the first one either. That was just incredible placement, incredible shot power by Phil Foden. So yeah, it's really down to fine margins. We talked earlier on about the standard being so high in order to beat the best, and unfortunately we fell short of the mark. Today, a lot of people are really slagging off certain individuals. Amadou Onana has been one of those sorts of players. Andre Gomez didn't have a great game today. Some of his passing was loose. But you know what? I think, yet again, we died on the hill today. You know, you could see the heart, you could see the work rate. It's not too often you see like teams playing a high press against Man City, and yet we were the team trying to, you know, dictate things, really push them around a little bit, make them uncomfortable on our stomping ground. And we saw through the first goal, which was very clinical, by the way, the finish. That's exactly what happened. And we saw the benefits of that psychological edge occurring. You know, there was a couple turnovers in there. We sent them further and further back. They made errors, you know, deeper and deeper on the pitch. And we were able to capitalize and get us in a really good spot where we could actually get a high percentage goal and create those overloads. So that was really good to see. I thought the fullbacks were exceptional today as well. More so Mikalenko, he was just superb. And Branthwaite, the same. On a couple of occasions, you could have foreseen if we had another centre-half, you know, the bad consequences that we could have faced, you know, playing a bit of a higher line and City pressing at times. You could see that when we stuffed around with it and we didn't really advance the ball forward, that's when we were prone to turnover. And you saw City get into the wider positions as the game wore on, be a little bit more expansive with it. That really, put us on edge. And, we in the second half felt the heat. To our credit, we held firm for a certain extent, a certain period of time, but out the second half, Man City were, they were a different beast altogether. They were different gravy. It was just, one of those performances where you can't really put it down to us being completely shit. You just have to put it down to a team exercising their dominance, and that's exactly what Man City did. We've got one more game before the new year, I do believe. If not, it will be the new year. It's against Wolves. I believe it's at Molineux, so that's going to be a really good contest. Some would say it's the Victim Cup because Wolves have equally been done in by the referees and such. So, look, surely one team isn't going to get, the full slate of the decisions in that matchup. So I think it's going to be a really good game. Two teams that are probably evenly matched. There's plenty of work to be done by us, obviously, in that vulnerability down the bottom end of the table. But if the first half of the season is anything to go by, it's that we're a completely transformed team and we will go at it with even the best of the best, even though we don't have the skill or the quality that may well align with these far superior outfits. That's going to do it from me. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. We will see you for the final review of 2023. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.